Hello and welcome to my tutorial on how to paint gnomes using watercolor. For a list of everything you need to get started, be sure to check out the video description below and hit the thumbs up button if you enjoy painting along with me. Alright, so let's get started. If you have a light pencil, this is a great way to sketch out your painting before you get started. I always like to give my paintings a loose outline so that I know where I'm going to be adding the color. So we're going to do 3 gnomes in a row. So we're going to start with their hats. And for the hats, you just want to have a loose sort of hat shape. It can be a little bit wobbly. Some are going to be sort of tipped over, but it's basically a triangle shape followed by a wider brim. So that's one. And then we'll draw a little nose followed by a little beard. So that's basically the shape you want for each gnome, and we're going to add some variations on each of the gnomes as well. So we're going to start with the second one. We're going to vary it with color. I'm going to draw the nose to start on this guy so that I know where he's going to go. And then I'm going to draw the hat. And this hat I'm going to have flopping over. So we're going to do the same thing, hat shape, except this time I'm going to have it sort of scrunched over like that. And then I'll make this beard a little bit wavy. And they don't have to be perfect, have fun with it. I'll draw the next nose. This one will be a little bit longer, more oval shape. And then this hat I'm going to have sticking up almost straight. I want to have each hat be a little bit different. And so this one I'll topple over just a little bit at the end. And that way we have nice symmetry there. And then maybe for this guy, I'll make his beard curly. All right, I'll have the ground just be sort of here. And that's what you want to have to start out. So if you want to pause it right here and get caught up, this is a good time. And then we'll get started adding down the color. All right. So when I work with watercolors, I always like to do something called wet in wet, and that's where I lay down clear water before I get started with the paints. So first things first, I'm going to do a layer of clear water inside the left hat, and I always go left to right when possible, just because my hand then doesn't smear through wet watercolors. So we'll do clear water, and then I think my first hat I'm going to make pink. So we're going to drop in some pink just along the outside. And you're wanting to sort of follow the perimeter and leave some spots white. And that's because as the watercolor hits the water, it's going to bleed in, but we don't want it to bleed everywhere. We want to have it lighter and darker in some spots. So we achieve this by just letting the paint rest in the water and bleed when it wants to. As it dries, it'll bleed further. So to create some variation on this hat, we're going to actually go in with a little bit of purple as well. Now my pink is quite dark. If you have a bright pink, that's great. If you have an even darker one, that's great too. You don't have to copy the exact colors I'm doing, but if you're just starting out and you want to, that's totally fine too. Have fun with it. So we're going to add a little bit of purple for some shading. Maybe a little purple near the top, but we're trying to keep the center quite light. So I'm going to move on now to the center hat. So just taking the clear water again and filling in the whole hat. And then I'm going to take some yellow, bright yellow, and drop that in. My yellow is quite bright. And you'll notice that it's sort of exploding, and that's because of all the clear water that I had already put in. Then I'm going to take some orange, and I'm just going to touch in. My orange is actually an orange gouache that I'm trying to use up, and then I'll replace it with orange watercolor. And if you're wondering about the difference between gouache and watercolor, it's basically gouache is a lot more opaque when it goes down, whereas watercolor is more translucent. So we're going to add in some orange here. Basically, just touch the orange to the page in a couple of areas. And darken down here. I'm using the tip of my brush. If you have a fine brush, you can use that as well, like a liner brush. And then I think we need, last but not least, a teal and blue hat. If you've done a lot of my videos, you'll notice I always feel the need to include teal in every painting because it's one of my favorite watercolor colors. All right, so I have a bit of teal. So I'll drop that in. And if you want to put a pattern on any of your hats as well, that works. You can do lines, you can do spots. I'm just keeping mine all one color. I'm going to do some Prussian blue on the one side of the hat and then along the bottom. And we're going to go in after and help outline a few of these spots. So if you see pencil lines showing through, not to worry, we'll be getting rid of that. All right. So now, because we can't go straight to the nose because it'll bleed into the hats, we're actually going to do the beards next. So with the beards, I'm going to be using gray, or basically a watered down black, to create the texture. So I'm going to want to create little wispy strokes with water. And then I'm going to go in with a bit of the black and just kind of do the same wispy strokes. And you'll notice that in some places where I've laid down water, it's going to bleed in. And in some places where there is no water, you'll see a lot more definition. So I'm going to do that again. I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to take water and do those same wispy sort of strokes using the tip of my brush, or a liner brush if you have. Then I'm going to take a little bit of black. This is called lamp black. And I'm just going to add in those little strokes that you would see in a beard, those little hair-like strokes. And that's how I create that texture. It's fairly straightforward. And then I'm going to just draw a line underneath here. And I'll move on to this one. This one I'm going to make a little bit wavy. So the way I would do that is I'm going to just draw wavy lines using clear water. You can make all your beards the same or different like mine. It's totally up to you. So I'm just going to draw these little wavy strokes. Just keep in mind, if you do touch the hat and your hat's still wet, it will bleed in, the black will bleed into your hat. So just be mindful of that. Then I'm going to take some fairly strong black. That's basically where I just mush around the brush a little bit longer in the black. And I'm going to do that line again. And then I'm going to do the curly beard last. So for the curly beard, I'm just drawing little tiny curly strokes with clear water. At this point, I think you get the idea. Basically, always adding clear water first. And then we're going to take the tip of the brush and just do tiny little curly brush strokes using the tip of the brush. And like I said, we'll redefine some of these after. So right now it's just about getting a little bit of shading in. Being mindful not to touch the hat. And then outlining the bottom again while it's still wet. And I like to do that because that allows the bottom to bleed in a little bit. So we're just redefining that. All right. So I've done all that I can do without waiting for it to dry. So I'm going to give this a quick blow dry. And when I come back, I'll show you the next steps. All right, so now that our gnomes have fully dried, we're going to add the noses. So for the noses, what I have on hand right now is a yellow ochre, so I'm going to do that for the noses. Basically the same way I did everything else. I'm adding clear water first. And you don't want so much clear water that it bubbles on the page. You just want a light amount of clear water. Then I'm going to take a little bit of the yellow ochre. I'm just going to touch it along the edges. And I'm going to take a little bit more and do a little bit darker in one spot. And I'll just make my way around all of them. So same as before. Add the yellow ochre in. And then darken along the bottom. This one, I noticed I put a little too much in, so I'm going to use a clean dry brush to lift out a little bit of the paint. Same with this one. I like to use a dry brush as a means of controlling where I want the paint to go, and then a paper towel to constantly be cleaning it off. So that's what you want to have there, and now we're going to go in and add just a few highlights on the hats and dark spots. Not highlights, but dark spots. So I'm going to take some purple and just kind of add that in right here. Basically, I'm trying to differentiate where the rim of the hat would be. And we'll do that again with some black paint after, but I'm just going to help it along with the purple. And then I'm going to take a bit of pink and add that in right beside it. And just being mindful of the nose being wet, so not going over the nose again. Then we're going to add a little bit of red on this hat. Watered down red, I should say. We'll add a little bit here. And then I like to blend it in using a brush that just has clear water on it. I butt up to the red, and that helps blend it a little bit. We're not looking for perfect lines right now, so don't worry too much about that. Just having fun with it. This is a great design. It would make a cute card for somebody. I'm going to throw in a little bit of pink here. And then for this hat, I think I'm going to add some stripes. So I'm going to darken using dark blue, just add in some stripes. All the way around. Once again, just being mindful of the fact that the nose is still wet. And then while these hats dry, I'm going to take a really strong black, and basically what I mean by that is I'm going to mush the brush around in the black for quite a while so that my water is quite saturated with black. And then this is what I'm going to use to create some more texture in the beard. So I'm outlining the beard. I'm going to add some wavy lines through it, just to further detail it. And add a little bit of lines around there. Now I can see that my nose is dry, so I can actually go in and with just using the light tip of the brush, I'm going to go in and outline certain parts. With watercolor, I'm often bouncing around the page when I notice things are dry, so hopefully it's not too tricky to follow. So I'm going to go here now and just add some more wavy lines. And then because this nose is dry too, I'm going to outline it. And then outline the brim of the hat. And last but not least, we can do this little guy. And this guy has curly hair, so we're going to want to do little curly strokes. And I notice the bottom of this guy isn't quite as dark, so I'm just going to darken it a little bit. And then finish outlining. And then now that I've been working my way over here, I notice this hat is now dry and ready to have a bit of an outline. So I don't always outline the whole thing. A lot of my paintings I don't outline at all, but because these are more like an illustration, that's why I'm going in and adding a bit more of an outline. So it depends a bit. If you're liking them without an outline, just leave them as is. I feel like they could use a little bit of definition, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Wherever it's wet, I'm not touching the black to the page. So I noticed there's a little bit of water there. That probably dripped. So this side has a bit more wetness because those stripes, I did them quite strong. So I'm just being mindful not to add any black and touch any black anywhere where the dark blue is still drying. And then I'm gonna go in and just add a bit of a line on each of the stripes to help make them stand out. And now if you want to add some splatters, you can. I feel like it could go either way. I'm gonna add in a few blue ones because I can't resist adding a few little whimsical splatters on a painting just like this. I'm gonna add some purple in. And lastly, a little bit of yellow. I'm just color coordinating my splatters with the colors of the gnomes. So if you enjoyed painting along with me, be sure to hit the like button and hit subscribe if you want to see other videos just like this one. Thank you so much for watching.